Alrighty, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to get us started by introducing our panelists for today and sort of introducing the structure of the event. My name is Lisa Dush, and I'm a professor in DePaul's Department of Writing, Rhetoric, and Discourse. And I'm the faculty director of HumanitiesX, which is co-sponsoring today's event with the Content Strategy Meetup. Before I introduce today's speaker, Adrienne Gibbs, I'd like to briefly introduce HumanitiesX, which will give some context for our invitation to Adrienne. And then I'll hand off to Kadisha Thomas-Smith, who is the co-director with Jen O'Brien of the Content Strategy Meetup, to say a few introductory words, and then I'll return to introduce Adrienne and to describe our plan for the event today. So HumanitiesX is a multi-year initiative in DePaul's College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences that's funded by the Mellon Foundation. Our main project is an annual fellowship that's awarded to teams of faculty, community partners, and student interns to support them as they collaboratively design and deliver courses that are taught from humanities perspectives on an annual common theme of critical importance. So our plan was to kick off the program this year with a cohort of fellows designing courses focused on the theme of immigration and migration, but the pandemic has postponed that launch until next fall. We have instead pursued several related initiatives, all with the same goal of demonstrating the power of the humanities approaches to help us understand and make progress on the key social issues and problems of our time. We've invited Adrienne Gibbs to speak with us today on the topic of long-form social content because she works in one of the most interesting new spaces for sharing ideas, Medium. Some of our DePaul faculty had the opportunity to write on Medium earlier this year through a HumanitiesX sponsored workshop that gave them structure and space to think about how their academic work could inform public understanding of the pandemic. The final deliverable of our workshop was a Medium publication called Humanities Now that featured short public-facing articles by the workshop attendees. So it was exciting for me to see my colleagues who are used to writing long text-only articles for very small and highly specialized audiences in scholarly journals, working to distill their ideas for public audiences in Medium articles. And we told them no longer than 1,000 words. So I discovered Adrienne's editorial work on Medium, and I'm very happy that she's joined us today. So on behalf of HumanitiesX, I'd like to welcome Adrienne Gibbs, those of you from DePaul, and those of you from the Chicago Content Strategy Meetup to today's event. And I'll pass on to Kadisha to greet the content strategy audience.
Hello, my name is Kadisha Thomas-Smith, and I am a member of the Chicago Content Strategy Meetup. I work very closely with the director, Jen O'Brien, to plan some of our sessions. The Chicago Content Strategy Meetup is really a great space for aspiring and established content strategists to come and exchange best practices, learn a little bit more about how content strategy works in different industries, and really just build our skills together and help each other out. We talk about everything from how much should we charge as freelancers to are there any positions available. It's a great networking space. And when I first realized that my job as a writer had changed to becoming a content strategist, this is a group that I definitely credit with giving me the skills to do more content strategy projects. We try to meet monthly. That hasn't been happening because of the pandemic, but check the Meetup page to see when we'll be organizing our next one.
All right. So I'd like to briefly introduce Adrienne. So Adrienne Gibbs is a graduate of Evanston's own Northwestern University, and she's based in Chicago. She has had a distinguished career as a journalist, working as a staff writer for the Boston Globe, the Miami Herald, St. Petersburg Times, and the Chicago Sun-Times, and as a weekly columnist for Forbes magazine. She's also an experienced editorial manager who's worked as a managing editor for Ebony magazine and New City, and she now plans editorial strategy for 3 Medium publications, Zora, Momentum, and Level. The content strategists among us will be interested in Gibbs' experience as a copywriter and editor of thought leadership articles for clients including Apple, Netflix, Atlantic Records, the University of Chicago, and Subaru. Adrienne was recently promoted to the Director of Multicultural Content at Medium, a role that she'll discuss with us today. For those of you who don't know Medium, it's an online writing and publishing space that was created by Evan Williams, who co-founded Twitter. It was imagined as a long format alternative to the 140 characters that you originally got on Twitter. Yet it has a lot of the same social affordances of Twitter. You can read and write and create publications and newsletters. You can have multiple contributing authors on Medium for free. There's also a subscription model that lets you read some things that are behind a paywall. So the Medium team seems committed to figuring out what has proven to be a tough nut to crack in online publishing, which is how to make money for both Medium and for its writers and editors. So we're excited to have Adrienne here today to engage us in a conversation about public writing, equitable content development processes, and content strategy. She's going to speak for about 15 minutes to our two invited audiences, first about how academic writers can use Medium, and then about how her team develops content through intentionally equitable and anti-racist practices. And then after that, Kadisha and I are going to ask Adrienne a few questions each, and then we'll have at least 20 minutes for audience questions. So we encourage you to drop your questions in the Q&A throughout the event, and then we'll get to those when we move to the Q&A session. So without further ado, welcome, Adrienne.
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Thanks for that introduction. I have a job. I'm so happy right now. It's COVID, to be working, right? Yes, I'm Adrienne Samuels Gibbs. I actually dropped into the chat, medium.com. If you haven't been there, maybe you'd like to peruse medium.com while I talk a little bit, because it's a good place to be. I'm not just saying that because I work there. I was there before. I was writing on Medium long before I had this job. So I really wanted to talk about, I know there's two different groups here, but I wanted to talk to both of you all about finding your voice, about finding the voice of your audience, about talking to the people, because the people are who we're all trying to reach, right? We're all trying to get these important messages across. And so as a professional communicator, as a journalist turned entrepreneur, turned freelancer, turned entertainment journalist, turned managing editor-in-chief, and now director of multicultural content, I've worn a ton of hats. And so I know a little bit about how to move people along from each of those areas. But I wanted to start by saying that I think that people who want to communicate professionally outside of their subcategory fall into a couple of buckets. And one bucket is the overly confident, pompous, big talker. They know everything that's going on. They're really good at it. They know their ish. They don't want to talk to you, though. They want to talk at you. They're capital C, capital S, smart. And would just talk right over you, walk right over you, write right over you. And they may know a lot, but nobody hears them. They just don't know it. So then there's the other folks, like this bucket, that's like my second bucket. Those are the people who want to talk or write, and they have an entire encyclopedia entry instead of focusing on one chapter or a niche. And these people know a lot and mean well, but they're so hyper uber excited that they kind of get lost in the sauce. This is fine. There are fixes for all of these. I'm going to go through all the fixes, okay? There's another bucket. I call them the people who mumble. Do they know what they want to say, or are they shy? I suspect they know exactly what's going on, but they're being shouted out by the overly confident, pompous people who are probably really privileged and don't want to admit that. And then you have the people who want to communicate about everything except for the topic at hand. And then you have the last bucket, those people that strike the right balance between all of the above. Sometimes you need to have a little bit from each bucket to really make your message super effective. So obviously you want to be the person that strikes that balance. And lucky you, we're all talking, because I bet we all strike that balance all the time, don't we? Sure we do. So how do you do this, especially at a time where we're all talking about really key social issues, and maybe you're an academic and everyone wants to write for the journal, but there's other places to go that more people read, where your ideas might actually be more embraced if you're open to the idea of public discourse. And so if you write, say, for a place like Medium, it's all about ideas. It's longer than Twitter. It's all about really good ideas and really good public discourse. Some of the best pieces on Medium by academics who I work with, some of the pieces go viral, and both academics and regular people talk to them and comment in the comments, and there's threaded comments, and then people take it to Facebook, and then they take it to their Clubhouse channel. They're talking about all these really big ideas that are well researched, and that many of the academics I work with even put all their citations and things in, like, you know, the whole APA style, which I edit right out because we don't really do that. You know, hot links work, everybody. So, and I know it's scary to kind of put yourself out there like that, but the best people can put themselves out there like that, and they're okay with the discourse. They're not that number one, the pompous one that doesn't really want to talk to you, wants to talk at you. And so when it comes to this public discourse, especially when we're talking about critical race theory, we're talking about work, we're talking about issues like the laziness lie, we're talking about the combination of the Protestant work ethic with capitalism, with what's happening during COVID to everybody's job and their kids, and all the privileged people are wrestling with and don't know what to do with. These are all things that are really being explored on Medium, and plenty of other places too, New York Times op-ed section being a main one. But you can write all this stuff, and I would encourage you to write all this stuff, but I would encourage you to just write, not overthink it. It doesn't need to be peer reviewed by 5 people. It doesn't have to have big words. It doesn't have to have 6-syllable words either. I always tell people, tell it to me like I'm a kindergartner. It's really okay. I'm not offended. Because you are really smart, and I acknowledge that. But this audience is also really smart. They're just lawyers, or they write code. They're smart, but they just need you to say the same thing without all the lingo. So, for example, there's one professor I work with. Her name is Dr. Maya Hoskin, Hoskin, and she's at Loyola Marymount. And she came to me at Medium, and she was like, "Hey, I want to write about race. You know, I study race. I want to write about race." I was like, "Great," because one of the magazines that I work with, Zora, is all about race, and it's all about Black women, but sometimes that turns into all about race when you start talking about microaggressions, which never end. So I dropped Zora's link in the chat. So she writes a column 2 times a month, and she used to have like 150 reads. Now she's getting like 15, 20, 30,000 reads every single time she writes. I would imagine that for many people, this is really good to show to your publisher, because I know the publishers require that you have a Twitter following, LinkedIn following, some sort of social following. Most of the people who have books on I mean, there's a lot of authors on Medium, but I could see a lot of people prepping for their book, because they start writing on Medium when they're doing their dissertation, and you can kind of see it, and I love it because you can try out what you're thinking. Anyway, it's really interesting. So Maya's a really interesting person because she has somehow combined womanhood, Black motherhood, critical race theory, and COVID, all in one thing. And she has these really interesting essays. Another really interesting essay from someone that you all probably do know is from David Stovall. He wrote an essay for us a couple of weeks ago, not on Zora. I'm going to drop another one here. You will soon see that I run a couple of magazines at Medium. Medium's a vast, big, giant place. Momentum.medium.com is a publication dedicated to fighting anti-Black racism. And thank you, Lisa. And so there, David Stovall wrote for us about John Henryism, which I was not aware was a thing. I love editing academics. I was like, what is John Henryism? What is happening? And he just like broke it down, like, okay, John Henryism is when you're working too hard. And when people tell you that you're just lazy if you're not doing the absolute most plus 10. This is a rather superior and sophisticated microaggression, especially for people who are descendants of enslaved people. And so, of which I am one. And so, not only did I get to edit a really great essay that he co-authored with another professor, but it really got me thinking, and it got a lot of our readers thinking, like, gosh, you know. And then he tied in a really neat, some neat quotes from the doctors that were creating the COVID vaccines and how they were working 20-hour days to create this COVID vaccine. Black women working 20 hours a day to find a COVID vaccine to save the rest of the world when Black people in Chicago can't get a vaccine, even though they want one. That's a myth, by the way, that people don't want it. People want it, but they can't get it. Side note, I was told to drive all the way to 2 hours north of here to get a vaccine. What if I didn't have a car? So like even the acquisition of a COVID vaccine requires so much privilege, it's insane. But David put all that together rather eloquently in one 1,300 word package. And is it a book? Maybe. Who knows? Maybe he was testing it out. I have absolutely no idea. But you know what I did this morning? I emailed him and said, hey, what you got? Because we have the Tulsa race riots coming. We have the anniversary of the death of George Floyd coming. We need to make sense of all these things. And they've also now, got the COVID vaccine for the 12-year-olds. And we need to understand how this is impacting everybody from your perspective, knowing Black history, knowing sociology, all that good stuff. So the great thing about his piece, which you can find if you go to Momentum and just search for his name, but the great thing about that piece was that it was just written in such beautiful, regular language. Like it wasn't, to me, overly academic. I specialize in making sure everybody can understand what we're talking about. And so it was just great. It was a really, really great idea. And I hope to see more ideas like that. I get a lot of pitches from professors. And I say yes a lot because professors know stuff. And associate professors know stuff. And assistant professors know stuff. And nobody has to be on staff. In fact, not on staff, that's the wrong term. What's the word I'm looking for? Like the people who are the highest level professors. You don't have to be one of those people. You could be an assistant or an associate. You could be at a community college and it's fine. Because I think there's value no matter where you work, and it doesn't have to be Harvard. And in fact, one of our more popular pieces came from a professor at Moraine Valley Community College. And Moraine Valley Community College is it in Cook County? I think it's still Cook County. It's like by kind of by Orland Square Mall, far southwest side. So off of like not too far from 294. So she wrote, Shania Gill Gray wrote a piece for Zora about therapy and about being a psychologist and about all the things that she hears from Black women and all the macro aggressions that her clients experience and that the students experience. And she wrote a very simple piece, and it was a list. It was 50 ways I see Black women. And she just wrote, I listen to Black women all day long about all these things. And honestly, the only way that we're going to fix any of this is if society really changes. But it's important to acknowledge what's happening. So number one, here's my list. Black women, I see you. Number one, I see you when you got passed over for your promotion, even though you have 2 PhDs and all of your coworkers have master's degrees. I see you. And number two, Black women, I see you when you're trying to get your baby an appointment at the doctor and nobody will give you an appointment. You have to wait 3 months to see a doctor, even though you have a job on great insurance. For some reason, you still can't see a doctor. I see you and I know what's happening. So like she went through 50 points and eloquently written and hit the right note. So it helped her, I'm sure, to process some things she was feeling, but at the same time, this also exposed a whole different audience to Shania's style of writing, her practice, and ultimately what she's trying to do. And I talked to her, she's going to be writing another piece pretty soon. And it seems like it's just a really big relief to be able to say these things, but it doesn't have to be, JAMA ready. You could do something different. It doesn't have to be Harvard Business Review ready. It's a different audience because the medium audience is a little bit of everybody. So that's one thing. So like, I think that if you are striving to get that balance, to to use your voice, I think you should. I think you should use your voice. I think it's okay to step outside of your lane sometimes. Like, if it depends what you're studying, but you're not going to be an expert in everything, but you have your own lived experiences. And so you can say, like, I got another piece that I'm probably going to run next week. I forget what university this person was at, but they're basically writing about, how do I say it? It's like, they're writing about COVID, and they're writing about how men and women are processing having to get the COVID shot, and who's the one taking the responsibility for getting the family the shot, and why is it always fall on the women, even though, there's like all this, it's a lot of sexism wrapped up in there, a lot of household economics wrapped up in there. I believe the person's an economics professor. So they took this economics discussion of the role of women, and then still added in COVID, and added in shots, and added in their own personal experiences, having to listen to people talk about this on Facebook and everywhere else. Who's getting the kids the COVID vaccines? There's usually one person in the household that's doing it and the other one's not. Because they're, I don't know, busy being a breadwinner, when maybe the woman's actually the breadwinner. So it's like a really interesting, just everything together. And, this economics professor had decided that they were not going to talk about some of the stories they've heard through friends and at the bar or wherever they are, that it wouldn't be the piece that it is. So are they an expert on relationships? No. But it's a really good economic discussion. And it's a really good discussion of the breakdown of gender roles in a house. And it's a really good discussion of who has access to COVID vaccines. All of it together, it sounds like a hard thing, but this person wove it together excellently. So I think that when people who know their niche can kind of also lean into what they know, it's okay to talk about what you know, even though you can't cite it. You can cite yourself, it's okay. I think, I know because I did the research. So that's one thing. And if you're going to share your voice, and I think everyone should, if you have something to say, that is, it's also okay to listen. I think it's okay to use your real authentic language. And I think it's okay to be edited, and it's okay to want to be edited. Like, I edit people, and often I talk to academics and I'm like, let's change this word, or we don't use BIPOC. BIPOC doesn't actually mean anything. And they're like, what? But we have to use BIPOC. And I'm like, actually, you don't. Let's talk about your words and meaning what you say. If you mean Black people, say it with me. Black people. If you mean Chinese people, say it with me. Chinese people. Whatever it is. If you mean indigenous, say it with me. Indigenous. BIPOC doesn't exist because everyone's a person of color. So just be specific. And so these are things that help enhance writing, where people have kind of maybe taken on buzzwords that need to be better evaluated. And that's what the editor does. The editor kind of saves you from yourself in some of those ways. And I think that, when you do this, you keep it simple. You do your editing, you keep it simple. You speak in your authentic voice, the way that you speak to your family, not the way that you speak to your colleagues. Then I think you end up with, the best of all the worlds here. So let's see, I took my notes here. And so I talked about so there's one more piece that I think was good that exhibits all this. There's another publication on Medium called Elemental, which is all about science. And I will type that in here. We have a really easy way to name stuff in Medium. You'll probably pick up on it, or maybe you picked up on it already. .com. Okay, so there's that. We have tons of PhDs write about how to wear a mask, what to do with your mask. Should you wear a mask at the party or at the park or whatever? They blend the science with some good common sense and their own best practices. People really, really like to see what really smart people do. especially in times of crisis. So those kinds of pieces where you just say, this is how I deal with it. You know, I am a psychiatrist and this is how I calm myself down. Or I am, I am a emergency room physician. And this is what I do when my kid falls down. And then they bring in all that science. That stuff is really popular because the trust factor is really high for people who do these jobs. You know, we believe academics. We just want to understand. So we just want to understand it. Just break it down. So that's my big spiel for academic writing, and also for like those programs out there where you can work with an editor to get your voice out there. Like I know the op-ed project is big. I'm sure everyone's probably heard of it. The op-ed project is always pitching me stuff. And even if I can't take it, I know a bunch of people at a bunch of places. And so if I feel like it'll be good for my friends at the New York Times or the Atlantic or McSweeney's or whatever, I just pass it along because, a lot of journalists know each other. The world's smaller than any of us think. So that's what I think. And I can just say that the humanities beat, so to speak, or the humanities discussions, those are huge. And some of the biggest discussions, not just in Medium, but almost anywhere, they're touching on humanities. I mean, how are we going to deal especially right now with this racial reckoning? This is the season, because this summer is going to be a summer of reflection if people choose to reflect. And, for every university and for every company that made a black box and that decided that they were going to hire more Black people or take Juneteenth off and be a better company, like, what did you really do? And these are the things that the reckoning that academics, I think in particular, can help analyze, because they have the capacity to analyze it. I would love to have like an economics professor or like someone who really knows marketing and business to really break down the value of a company deciding all of a sudden it's going to offer you Juneteenth off. And why? Do you offer Martin Luther King Day off? And why? And what do you do on these days off? And what are you supposed to do on these days off? And does everyone need this day off or just Black people? Let's ask some real questions. They're uncomfortable. And so this is why I say that these kinds of ideas sharpen the public discourse. When you sharpen the public discourse, you help everybody to think better and you break down barriers. So you've learned a lot about me just from that. I'm going to switch topics slightly, but not really. It's all the same, to the whole idea of content strategy, because you've heard some of my content strategy already with the stories that I have selected for Medium. So now at Medium, I'm the director of multicultural content. And what that means is that I'm in charge of bringing people to the platform so that they can share their ideas, so that they have a comfortable place to share ideas. I edit some people or assign editors to others, and we help people figure out their lane where they want to go. We also help people create their own mini pubs, kind of like the HumanitiesX pub that was created. In fact, I'm about to start working on spinning up like an academics topical pubs, like so that people who may not be comfortable writing by themselves can maybe write with a few other people in one blog if they have like complementary things they want to write about. So, but in this, with what I do, I'm going out and I'm finding people of every culture and saying, let's just get together and let's blow this out. Let's have these ideas. So today, I am proud to announce that we launched our Stop Asian Hate blog. So we stopped the Stop Asian Hate blog. And so that is stopasianhate.medium.com. Maybe you've figured it out by now. We have some really great minds writing about tough stuff, like Dao Yi Chao, who's a fashion designer, wrote a piece about how the Asian American community has to interrogate its own complicitness with racism in order to completely understand the anti-Asian sentiments that are going on right now. And tomorrow we have Ellen Chow, who you may know from, not Ellen Chow, we have Tracy Chow, and some other people from like Reddit who are going to be talking about white adjacency in tech. And stay tuned for that tomorrow. It's really good. So it's really good to talk to people, to invite them to write and to have them respond. They really want to do it. They're on Medium. They're going to be writing more frequently. And, you know, that is the beautiful part of it. It is a tough thing to kind of operationalize. So a lot of what I do is by feel, because I've run magazines before. And so I kind of have a good feel for what's trending and what's going to go viral. I'm pretty good at that. So I go with feel, I go with data. We have lots and lots of data at Medium, as any other website would have or app. And, you know, combining my feel, my intuition with the data, then I can come up with the plans that we're going to do. So we have some good things coming out, you know, rolling out different things in a couple of months. But you need the human, because algorithms are racist, right? So we know that. All algorithms are racist. So, you know, photos are racist, right? There's a reason why I had to have a lamp sitting here in my face for you to see me. It's because I'm dark skinned, and it's because cameras don't want to pick me up unless you overlight me. And so I have to, as a human, compensate for the fact that the natural light in my room will not light my dark skin enough for you to see me adequately on camera. I'm gonna turn my light off though, because that's the difference. So these are the things that humans have to account for. Algorithms can't do everything, because the human in me says, I'm about to get this light and put it right here so that you can actually see the contours of my face. So, you know, we know what's going to pop, but you need a human there. Diversity makes plenty money. It shouldn't matter who makes money, but if anybody cares, diversity makes plenty money. Companies do so much better. Universities do so much better. Everybody does so much better when everybody's in the room. Then you don't mess up. And I think content strategists kind of know this already, because we've seen some missteps. And one way to avoid the misstep is to have a really diverse staff. And not just like one, because one does not represent anybody but themselves. But like, I don't know, 10, 15 different kinds of people on staff would be good. So that way you don't trust the wrong person. You just got to make sure that all your people, you got enough people to vet the ideas and set the strategy right, figure out where you want to go, figure out what you're going to say. And I'll tell you, like with the Stop Asian Hate blog, there's a lot of conversation about what's Asian and what is Asian American and who qualifies as this and who qualifies as that. There's a lot of we, there's not a lot of we, because Asian, you know, it's a whole continent. So what are we really talking about here, right? So I have to ask the hard questions when we're going to launch a publication. It's called Stop Asian Hate. And I asked the staff that I work with, okay, what are we talking about? Are we talking about Chinese Americans, Japanese Americans only, or are we talking about Southeast Asian? What are we really talking about here? Because not everybody, when they say we, is talking about everybody. So I made sure that we have a piece from somebody in the Sikh community to talk about the murders there, the Chinese American community, that kind of thing. So there's a lot there. I could go on, but I'm going to stop because maybe there's some questions, maybe. So go ahead, ask me anything. It's like a Zoom AMA.
Thanks, Adrienne. I think maybe Kadisha and I can ask just a couple questions to get us started, but please do feel free to put any questions in the Q&A and we'll address those as well. Kadisha, you want to get started?
I do. Thank you so much for that. I've you and I have known each other for a really long time back in like Boston Globe. So I'm very familiar with your brilliance in the print world. So it's so good to see you flexing that same brilliance in the digital space. You said several things that I just want to amen. You said stop using the word BIPOC. I personally can't stand that term, and I will call you out if you say that to me. I also appreciate you really encouraging your writers to write in plain language, even if they are, so used to writing more formally, writing more academically, and understanding that Medium's audiences can come from everywhere. So my question from the content strategy perspective is that a lot of times content strategists are charged with finding the right tactic to get their client's message to their audience, right? So we have a client, they have a key message, they have a goal they want to hit. It includes content in some way. How do we know when Medium is the right vehicle? And then how do we know when it's not the right vehicle?
Well, I think if it's this kind of thing that you would put into an op-ed, then it is the right vehicle. If it is a straight up like commercial, then it's probably not gonna, I mean, you could put it up there, but it may not hit because people can smell that a mile away, right?
Absolutely.
So it's, but I think that I think Medium is really, really good when you have a point of view and you have really something to say. Like, not a sponsored post. That's a very different thing. But I think that's how Medium's big, and like there's a lot of popular topics on Medium like tech, coding, family, race is a big topic, culture, lifestyle. And if you have things that touch into those topics, like you could look at what's popular, you could open up the app, it'll tell you what's trending right now. But there's ways to make a conversation work for anything. And just like you can get into economics in a sideways kind of way. And you could make anything about COVID. And so honestly, like whatever the message is, if it's part of something about COVID, people would probably see it. I know that it kind of depends it depends what it is, obviously.
Yeah.
But hopefully that answers or helps a little bit.
That does. I think my next question is, you mentioned you have a lot of data, things go viral. How do you define when a piece is successful? Like what are their criteria, or is there traffic metrics that you wanted to hit? How do you define success for the pieces?
Well, for him, it depends who you are. Some people, I consider success for a Moraine Valley Community College associate professor. I consider success to be exactly what she got. Going from no followers to many followers, having 2,000 claps on her article, having all those comments. The amen chorus. I love this. And then also, I hate this. What's wrong with you? Why are you so racist? We get that too. And I consider that a success because that means people have engaged. A successful piece is when people engage. And we all know it's not about quantity sometimes. Sometimes it's about the quality. And that's why engagement with conversation is really key. When you see things get conversations, and this goes on any social media, when you start seeing a conversation around it, you got a winner. And that's why sometimes you don't even have to pay for that. It just depends if people are talking. If you can inject it into the conversation, you kind of hit gold with like a very low payout. So that's how it works, a Medium. Of course, we do have pieces that go viral. You'll get lots and lots, thousands and thousands of views. But it depends who you are if I think that's successful. Some writers always get thousands and thousands of views. So for those writers, let's go higher. Yeah. For a brand new writer to come in and get like a 20,000 views or something like that, that's huge. It means that you said something that struck a nerve. And this little, I was just thinking about it. I'm not sure if it's anything, but it might be a thing. That might be a thing was actually a thing. And people should do more of that.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
I was curious, maybe if I could hop in here, and I was thinking about the views. I've had my students write on Medium before, and mainly to give them a public audience and a nice writing space. And I was looking back at the analytics today, and I saw that some of them had like, thousands of views, which I would encourage my academic colleagues. It's like to get those kind of eyeballs on student writing is amazing. So there's that kind of built-in audience that's really interesting. But I was curious, Adrienne, if you can just talk a little bit about, if someone has posted something on their, like in their personal Medium space, like how does it circulate? Like, how does it get discovered? What's the editorial process there? And then you and I had talked a little bit about like things leave Medium and go to other places like Clubhouse, which I had not even heard of, and Twitch, which I know of as mainly a place that I try and keep my Minecraft playing kids off of. So like, what's the whole circulation ecosystem like, and how do things travel from Medium outward and also get discovered on Medium by people who can amplify it?
Gotcha. Well, the thing is, when you publish something on Medium, you have the option to go into the document and to tag it. And that tag is like the SEO search stuff. And that is what Google crawls. That's also what our algorithm crawls. So you can tag it 5 things. And so you pick 5 things, I don't know, lifestyle or, women, economics, feminism, whatever. There's like thousands and thousands of tags. You just write it in, it'll auto-populate, and then you save it. And so when you tag it, then when people have told Medium the topics they are interested in reading, when you tag something and it hits what somebody else wants to read about, they might be offered the story to read one day. Maybe not the minute you press send, because give it a minute, right? Maybe give it like 20. But it eventually circulates through, and it can be circulated to people who like whatever it is you're writing about. The other thing is that there's a lot of humans that work at Medium, and we have a whole curation department of people who just read Medium. They're all over the world. So I work with people in many different time zones. And the company also recently acquired a digital book publisher called Gloss, which is based in Europe. So we got people everywhere. And so they read. And then as a director, I get flagged. We use Slack. We use a lot of digital stuff at work. We're all basically remote. So, and remote before COVID. So we have channels where people just tell us, this is what's coming, this is what's up, you should read this, check this out, this looks interesting. We have heat maps. You know, just like any other website, you can see what's getting that heat. You could look at your heat map and, is this good? Should we funnel this somewhere? Should I reach out to the writer? And that's how it happens. I look at my heat map and I can always find someone's email address and email them and say, hey, a lot of professors find out after they write something because I email them and say, hey, this needs to be, highlighted. So can we highlight this? And, sometimes we can pay people a little extra money too. It depends what's going on. So that's kind of how that works. We have humans and we have an algorithm that works together.
Just a follow up on that, I see a lot as I scroll through Medium and look at people. I notice a lot of things that like start and kind of die. Like people start with a pretty regular writing schedule, and then they kind of can't keep it up. And so I had 2 questions about that. Is like, why do you think that happens? And is Medium a space where ideas that have longevity could go, or is the emphasis on sort of amplifying new stuff and getting it out there quickly, and then it sort of has a quick half-life?
I think Medium is a place where ideas can go forever, because some stuff just keeps coming back up. Some of the most popular stories, Medium works because of the older pieces, actually. And so many of the older pieces are still in super high circulation, especially like econ and feminism and like productivity, that kind of stuff. It's like huge. Like if you have 5 tips on how to write a better something, that could stay around for like at least 7 years, because everybody that comes is looking for a better way to do something, a better way to wear a mask, a better way to write a paper, a better way to insert XXX. So I think it doesn't have to be necessarily new. Some stuff just keeps getting recirculated because it keeps getting discovered by the new people that come in. Or if you've been on Medium for a minute, maybe you'll change your topics. You know, I've expanded my topics since I started on Medium 7 years ago. I no longer just follow newspapers. I follow a bunch of other stuff. So now I'm getting served up all kind of new different things. I started following haiku because I just like haiku. And now I get haiku every morning. So now I'm discovering like haikus from 2016, but it's cool because it's new to me, you know? So I think that's the cool part. And so what was the second part of your question was, how to keep up.
Yeah.
So how to keep up is always curious because sometimes people are really ambitious and they're like, I'm going to write every day. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Calm down, slow down. I think that 2 times a month is a really good rhythm for a person who is working or in school. Any more than that, then you qualify to be an actual newspaper columnist. And you should talk to a newspaper columnist about how hard it is to write every day or every week, because you can't really do anything else. That's your job. I think 2 times a month is fine. I think that if you have a rhythm and you know I'm going to do the 1st and the 15th or the 2nd and 20th, whatever it is, your readers will find you and they'll figure it out. I think that's a way to not get lost. We also have a whole thing called Creators Hub where we give prompts for people. And so I send out emails and I also post on Twitter a lot about things you could be writing about. Like the Tulsa race riots are 100 years old. And, you know, Greenwood was destroyed by state-sanctioned violence. The whole army dropped the bomb literally on the Black community and killed everybody, except for the 20 people who got away, right? And then the mass graves that they're still digging up now and stuff. There's so much there. Like if you have even a cursory interest in history or in race or in how cemeteries are handled, or in Indigenous and Black relations, or on oil fields, all that good stuff. I put it out there. I'm waiting for people to write about it, and they are. So many people like those prompts because they're like, oh, I didn't know about that. And that's my job because I did news for so long. I run on that news cycle, and so I just tell people, you could write about this because there's lots of anniversaries this summer for all kinds of things. And, so you could do that.
So do we have audience questions at all? We are happy to address those, or maybe we could have one more panelist question if we don't have audience questions.
We don't so far. So we encourage you all to please put any questions you have in the Q&A. But in the interim, I think we could maybe entertain 1 or 2 more.
Kadisha, you want to go?
Sure. I just, one of the things I mean, for people who are coming from a different background and now they want to be writers, they have something to say, but it's not something they've done before. How would you suggest they prepare themselves for becoming a writer on Medium, or maybe even going into digital content if they're looking to make a bigger transition?
Okay, so coming from, what do you mean, like casual writers or like professional people?
So you mentioned professors who are used to writing for journals. Mm-hmm. And so now they're writing in a digital space where they, have to change their voice and tone. How do they do it? Like, what do you recommend that they do to sort of prepare themselves to be that type of publisher?
Well, I think that no matter where you want to go, first, if you can, connect yourself with an editor.
Yeah.
I think that there are lots and lots of editors. You can find them on Twitter. People who are like in this industry are real vocal about what they do. You could just search for them and find them. Follow them. Make friends with them. It is really nice to have friends who are editors at the New York Times or the Chicago Tribune or NPR or ABC News. Just kind of follow the producers and the editors and that's one thing, because what happens then is that you can eventually say, hey, I want to write something. Could you read it for me? I just want your professional opinion. People get so flattered when you like ask, and they're happy to read. And at least at Medium, you could flag any of the editors directly and say, hey, I really want to write, but I think I need some support. And we have like a whole department that gives support. It's called the Creators Hub. It is nothing but support. So it's like, if you want to talk it out, hash it out, people can. There's also like a Slack channel for Medium writers, and Medium writers help each other with their Slack. And I think there's also there's a Zoom call twice a month. And this is all like writer led. They just love writing. And so they're trying to figure out a way to help each other do it. Most of them are academics actually. And they just get together and do all this stuff and then publish all their stuff. So that's the second piece of advice. And the third piece of advice I would give is just to write. If you have a MacBook, you can use that dictation. Sometimes if writing is too difficult, what you can do is talk. If you're going to tell a story to your best friend or the person in the cubicle next to you, then you should be able to write it. Maybe you can't write it though, because you're intimidated by a white screen or a blank screen. Just talk it. Kind of how all the kids who didn't know how to type this year had to learn how to type. Like my son is 7. He's not a typer. I said, you dictate, you can tell your whole story and then we'll figure out how to spell things later, but we need to get the work done. And so I think the dictation is a really good way. And also some people need to handwrite. I know a lot of writers who handwrite in notebooks at the beginning of the day, and then they just transfer that or have an intern transfer it to, but pay them please, to the written word. So that's how you can get over your, that's how you can start to do it. Just say it. Because however you say it normally without overthinking it is probably how you should write it.
Good, thank you.
And we have had one question come in from our group too, regarding how brands are using Medium successfully.
Sure. That's an interesting question because I think many are. So we have like a lot of partnerships with a bunch of like publishers. So, you know, Refinery 29, The Atlantic, there's like a bunch of magazines and newspapers on Medium, and they're really using Medium as a way to find new audiences and to bring people back to their mothership. So that's really cool. I just inked a contract with YR Media in San Francisco. And they are like a nonprofit that works with young people to teach them how to write and to help them write, help them find their voices and express themselves. And I really want those young people to be writing. So we're going to do a little bit of a cultural exchange. And so I think that YR Media is using Medium, or about to use Medium, very effectively, because they're about to expose their young writers. And I think they're all like 16 to probably 25 to a much larger audience than what they have. But there's a much, much larger audience. And so, and then with a little support, we can get them in front of more people and they can be discovered. You know, that's the cool part, that there's so many people on Medium. Your stuff could be discovered by somebody who could really elevate your conversation. Another brand that's using Medium successfully is the president. And the former president before the president. Barack Obama uses Medium really well. It's actually where he posts his whenever there's a message, he's going to post it on Medium. So what happens is whenever you see Barack Obama said this and that, he said it on Medium. And Chrissy Teigen uses Medium in the same way. She posted about her miscarriage, actually. And I think it helped a lot of people to really talk about miscarriage out loud in the middle of a pandemic. So she got off Twitter and used Medium to really carry a message that was longer than a very short tweet. So she's definitely using the platform in an interesting way. You see people using it like that. Let's see. And I think brands, some people are brands, which is why I brought up the the presidents, and some publishers are, obviously brands as well. Like straight up brands like Giphy. They've got a cool account. And guess what they post? It's amazing, good stuff. You should look it up. It's a lot of fun. Getty Images uses Medium, and they talk about photos. So like people are using it for those reasons. And like, a museum would use Medium and talk about whatever they have coming up. They don't like post press releases. That's not it. You actually talk about stuff. Like, we have this, the politics of holding somebody else's dead body. This is how we resolve these politics. We have someone's dead body. Should we keep it? Should we return it? We're going to return it. Like it's not ours. Like, so I think that people are using it to really write. Now that said, it's not, it requires some honesty. Some PR departments might not advise a museum to say something like that. But by saying things like that, more people will visit your museum because they will respect you. So, it's a new era. So I think people are using it in all kinds of ways. And of course, book publishers use Medium, and writers like the before mentioned haiku people. I've met all kinds of haiku people because I didn't even know I liked haiku this much. And yet here we are with haikus every morning. So I hope that answers a little bit how brands can use it. I would poke around and I would search for your favorite brand on Medium and see what pops up.
I think some nonprofits too are using Medium in interesting ways, and in academic spaces, I see like research groups and centers on campus. So if there are places that are producing ideas, it seems like a good, useful space for writing. All right, well, we are at about 4 o'clock, so I think we'll end things there. I wanted to thank Adrienne for sharing your insight with us. It was great to have you. So thank you on behalf of DePaul and HumanitiesX content strategists. It's always great to get together with you all. Thank you, Kadisha and Jen, for contributing today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And also, hey, I'm happy if you have anything else, it's all good. You could drop me an email at agibbs@medium.com. It's fine. You could also ask me on Twitter. We're real transparent very transparent at Medium. So you could ask on Twitter and it'd be fine. Hell, Ev may answer you. He's that kind of dude. So, thank you for having me. Hope this was in some way helpful.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.